I want to give folks an update on the Anna Slatz situation, and I want to explain the latest. And when I say latest, I mean I'm literally getting news every few minutes on this. In fact, just even as I walked in to sit down. So let me give a 5-minute briefing, and I'll explain why I'm here instead of on the plane to New York. I actually booked a ticket on the Delta flight that is leaving Toronto right now, but I returned from the airport. So let me give you an update, and then I'll let you get back to things. So this is probably a 5-minute update, and I would ask our team if you maybe can clip this update and put this as a separate YouTube and video, and just to let people know. So very quick background, we have a new reporter named Anna Slatz. She does great work, great investigative journalist. She's based in Atlantic Canada. And on the weekend I talked to her and she said, I want to go cover the protests and the riots in the United States. And Anna is interested in social justice. I would even say she's left of center, but she has a great sensibility to her. And I got to know her a little bit over the Jonathan Yaniv issues. And so I was delighted when she agreed to write for us, and I thought she's a perfect fit to go and cover the Black Lives Matter protests, the peaceful protests, but also the Antifa riots. So she went to Washington, D.C. and did amazing frontline coverage for 2 days. You can see like she was right in the middle of it. And we offered her serious security, but she declined it, saying she can move more quickly and quietly without a big lug next to her, and she was right. And thanks, David, but don't go away. So she did great journalism for 2 days in Washington, D.C., and then when things tamped down there a bit, she said, well, let's go to New York City. And again, great news sense on her part. New York is the epicenter of the protests and, more importantly, the riots. So last night she was doing her thing, outstanding journalism on the street. And then a whole group of people were swept up by police and arrested immediately for what? For breaking the curfew. But the thing is, the curfew has a specific exemption for journalists. And of course, Anna was there as a journalist. She is a journalist. The police had no time for details like that. I suppose they were just in sweep everybody up mode. They took her to the police station, and she had one extremely brief phone call with me. She just said, I've been arrested for breaking the curfew despite the exemption. I'm at the Brooklyn Central booking station. The officer is named Officer so-and-so. I won't say his name here. And then the cops took her phone away, and that was the last I heard of her. I immediately phoned our on-the-ground New York criminal lawyer, who called me back right away, got right on the file, called the cop shop, had an officer go and try and find her, to no avail. And I do believe that, given how many hundreds of people were swept up all at once. But I was told that she would normally, in the course of events, be released within a couple of hours, and it was just a summons. So it's not like a big fancy bail hearing or anything. I don't even know if there's bail in New York anymore. So I sent a text and an email to Anna's phone, knowing she would get that when she was released, saying, let me know when you're out. Looks like everything's in hand. And I just sort of, I guess I fell asleep around 3 or 4, and I woke up with a start at 7 a.m. and realized that she hadn't called. She was still in the clink. So we literally retained 2 more law firms, which is sort of what we do whenever, it's sort of our go-to move. So we have a New York criminal law firm, and we got our Toronto firm on the works, and they hired a second New York firm. And let me just tell you what they've done. So I'm giving you a quick update. We've got the Canadian consulate in New York City on the file, and they have made contact and are advocating on behalf of Anna, who's a Canadian citizen. So I'm amazed and delighted with how quickly the Canadian diplomats in New York are working for Anna's behalf. That's frankly amazing, and that's great. While that track goes, we have another lawyer, and I'm going to read an email I received from him. So this is New York criminal lawyer number 2, who has filed an appearance. Let me read the email that I received. So there's so much going on. So this is by one of our lawyers. I'm not going to say his name, but he is a New York law firm based in Brooklyn, actually. Under normal circumstances, when a person is arrested, until they come before a judge, can take up to 24 hours. I have regularly been able to get clients to arraignment, the first court appearance, significantly quicker. We are currently not dealing with normal circumstances. Given the pandemic, the courts are still physically closed to the public, including attorneys. Court appearances for arraignments are being done remotely and virtually via Skype. Additionally, due to the amount of arrests that occurred recently in Manhattan, you can imagine that the system is somewhat burdened. I have already notified the court that Anna is represented by counsel, and I have submitted my notice of appearance to the court. I do not yet know what time the arraignment will take place. They will notify me. I will also be checking in with the clerks regularly. I will keep you posted as things develop and I learn new information. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, yada, yada, yada. So that's criminal lawyer number 2, based right there in Brooklyn, on the file, filing a notice of appearance, but he's explaining the facts on the ground. They actually have a physically closed court. I have nonetheless asked for a lawyer to be either at the police station or immediately outside, because it's important to me that if Anna is released, that she be met by someone immediately, even if it's a stranger with holding up a sign saying Anna. So as you know, this morning I dispatched Yankee Pollock, a friend of mine, a friend of Anna's, who's in Montreal, and we looked at the different travel arrangements, and driving down from Montreal to New York was actually the quickest. He left immediately. He left around 9:30 in the morning. So I expect he will be in Brooklyn in 3 hours. In fact, he called us from the road when he crossed over the Canada-U.S. border. He will be there in 3 hours. So Yankee will be there. It's a friendly face, a familiar face to Anna. I was going to hop on the plane, not that I can be of any practical use. I'm a former Canadian lawyer. I'm not a current U.S. lawyer. I don't know their law. I don't know criminal law. Plus, we have a lot of lawyers on the file, as you can see, including a pro based right there in Brooklyn who does this every day. My purpose was to go and be there to show moral solidarity. On my way to the airport, I booked the ticket very hastily this morning, one-way ticket from Delta, $200, which is a good fare, but I should tell you the airport's completely barren. I was there, I just came back from there, and I thought, okay, I can't go if I'm subject to the 14-day quarantine upon my return, but under the law, provincially, media are considered essential services, if you can believe it. And federally, the quarantine rules only do not apply if you have an essential business purpose, and I could argue that going to bring back a journalist from jail is an essential business purpose. So I felt like I had legal advice from our Canadian law firm that I would not be required to quarantine for 14 days upon my return, which hopefully would be tomorrow. So I felt, well, that's a good enough legal opinion for me. I'm willing to go down there to show solidarity with Anna, although we already have lawyers up the wazoo, plus the consulate on the file. I'm going to go down there anyways. So Anna knows that we care about her and that we're working full tilt. But while I was there in the departure lounge, I received other calls, arguments, and information saying, look, Ezra, you may have a legal fig leaf for going down there, and it may actually be valid. But that doesn't change the practicalities that if you're coming back to work after being in New York City, whether or not it's lawful, everyone at your office will say, oh, he's not in quarantine, he was just in New York. That may make them uncomfortable. And same with my family and my family's friends. So I would essentially be sentencing everyone in my circles to a quarantine. Even if I did quarantine myself, it would be at least my family. And if I intended to return to work, it would be them too. And I thought to myself, I can't do that. Even though I can legally do that, practically I cannot do that. My purpose for going down there was to show moral solidarity with Anna, and that remains my guiding motivation, because we have, in my view, done everything practical that we can do with the 3 different law firms, or maybe it's even 4 lawyers, I don't know. So, in fact, I'm not sure if I mentioned, it's just all been a blur. In addition to that lawyer who has indicated that he is appearing for Anna, we have another lawyer. I've been repeating myself and talking to so many lawyers. David, did I mention that we're going to have a lawyer on standby at or outside the court?
I believe you did.
Okay, thank you. There's There are 5 lawyers working on this. There's 2 lawyers in Toronto, 1 lawyer at the first law firm, 2 lawyers at the second law firm. I think that's 5 lawyers. It's absurd because actually she's just been arrested on what's really a ticket. It would be like a speeding ticket. I don't even think there's really a bail hearing. I think she would be bailed automatically. So it's not even that more legal firepower would do the trick. It's that just the system is so gummed up, as that first lawyer's letter indicates. I just find it incredibly frustrating that she has actually been in detention overnight. Although I don't believe she would have been unsafe in detention, it certainly would have been uncomfortable. I doubt she got much sleep. It must have been noisy. There might have been other fine people in jail, but there might have been genuine ruffians, to use a word. So, in conclusion, we actually have 5 lawyers working on this right now. Some of them are just making calls and coordinating. And David, I'll let you come back here. And Keean, thanks for letting me break in. But I wanted to explain why, at the last moment, I did not go to New York. And the reason is, although I believe I had a legal case that I could come back without as an essential worker, even if that was a legal argument that would be upheld, practically not quarantining myself after returning from a foreign country would just be something that I could not overcome in any of the things I have to do in the next 14 days. And I was just thinking like a lawyer. I thought, well, I can go there and back, it's essential work. Well, tell that to everyone else who has to work with me and their spouses and kids and my own spouse and kids. So, you know, I'm a bit embarrassed for the stop, start of that, but it's really irrelevant given that we have a significant presence on the ground in New York. Yankee is on the way to New York. He himself says he's fine self-quarantining upon his return to Canada. We have a lawyer who's indicated to the courts that Anna is represented. We have another lawyer that's going to station himself at or near the police station. And in fact, I have reached out and hopefully we'll be able to interview that lawyer who's just down there. We have the consulate working in New York City. I don't think there's any journalist in New York who has more lawyers working for his or her return than Anna does. And it's overkill, but that's sort of what we do here when one of our reporters is in a pickle. One last word about the website, saveannaslatz.com. Last I checked, we had crowdfunded about $5,000. I don't know how much all these lawyers are going to sop up. That's 5,000 Canadian mini bucks, so let's call that 3,500 US dollars. $5,600 raised so far. So I think that'll probably cover it. If there's any surplus, obviously we'll give it to Anna as some sort of a danger pay bonus for having had to go through this. That's one of the perils of covering dangerous and controversial events where police are, frankly, worried and nervous themselves. So that's my update. I wanted to explain why I did not go to New York as I had originally thought I would and planned to, what we are doing on the ground in Toronto and New York, what we're doing symbolically in the form of Yankee going down to greet her and having lawyer number 5 greet her, and the nature of the problem, which is basically pandemic, physical closure of the courts, plus an overwhelming number of arrests all at once. I just feel bad that that Anna, in her first debut with us on TV, wound up in the clink. So that's that. If you want to help out, you can make a super chat here or go to saveannaslatz.com. Like I say, any surplus will go to Anna. Thanks for letting me barge in. But I wanted to give you an update, explain why I myself have chosen to come back. And now, David, I'm going to let you and Keean get back to things. That's an excerpt from a daily live stream show that I do every day at 12 noon Eastern Time. I talk about the stories of the day, play some fun videos, and most importantly, I take your questions and comments in what YouTube calls a super chat. If you like that, please tune in live. It's way more fun that way. You can join the conversation. And every day at 8 p.m., I have a special produced show with a whole monologue, and I interview guests, and I read my fan mail and my hate mail. You can learn more about both my daily live show and the nightly premium show at rebelnews.com.